Hey, Arry The Staggers, TR Tony here. I'm away for the next couple of 3 weekends, so I just thought I'd do a thing a little bit differently this week and actually put an Arry The Stag podcast out. I hope you like it. It's based on our Saturday sockets that we do every Saturday. It's an email that goes out every Saturday and you can sign up for free in the description if you have a look. But I thought I'd just read out to you today a little bit of what happened to me last weekend. And I kicked off this morning with saying, shout out Arry The Stag next time you realise the pure joy of driving a classic car. And I always welcome my lovely stag appreciating lot on my Saturday sockets and all other classic car fans too, by the way. And we shouldn't forget that we love all sorts of classic cars here on Arry The Stag. Obviously the Stag is the main car, but equally we love all other types of classics as well. Absolutely love it, and the community that goes around that with it too. And it's all about sharing that classics dream, which I know you've seen lots of times on our channel before, but sharing the classics dream together really is what we stand for and what we believe in, is really our purpose. And blown away by the level of interest and community around the world from all sorts of different walks of life, and it's a real privilege to absorb and work with you guys in that way. But I've got to tell you, funny thing was, last weekend I was in absolute heaven last Saturday, and I'm thinking you're saying, why is that then, Tony? Well, I got up early for a change on a Saturday. It's most unusual. I enjoy a couple of beers on a Friday night, but last Saturday I got up very early and had loads of odd jobs to do. You know what it's like. They all get stacked up for the weekend, and there's kind of jobs that I think don't really seem to count for very much at all. I don't know if you're like me, when you're out mowing the lawns in your house or your garden, whatever, no one comes around your house afterwards, generally speaking, and says what a wonderful job you've just made of your garden, do they? And you know, it's like other chores around the house, a bit like hanging a curtain track inside the house. You know, your other half's nagged you for ages to get those shelves up or the curtain track up, but once you've done it, no one comes around and comments what a great job you just did on getting those shelves up, or how level that curtain track was. What a magnificent job. No, they don't. Nobody cares, do they? Well, with the exception maybe, you know, if you put a TV aerial up on the roof or something, a seagull or a wood pigeon who'll always be grateful for an extra perch to sit on. But well, although, you know, in the picture I'll show you, these two seem extremely fussy and opting only for the chimney pot instead. You see, to cut a very long story short, last Saturday I'd done loads of tasks that morning, and I started a bit of a rebuild of the garage. I'm planning to put a future booth or office in there, a studio for Arry The Stag, and also for my day job as well. I'd been up the timber merchants bright and early with James. He lent us his van and we went out and got some wood and some ply and all the rest of it, as well as doing the garden and the lawns that I already mentioned, front and back, as I would restate. I was definitely on a roll and actually found myself an hour ahead of myself. Felt like midday, but it was actually only 11 o'clock in the morning. Then I had under orders, went out and stamped down the recycling bin or the trash, so that basically we can get more stuff in it when the bin men come. Usually they come in the midweek, but the recycling bin always seems to fill up, which, by the way, you can always tell when our bin is being emptied. I don't know if this is the same as you. It gets emptied at 5 a.m. on a Wednesday morning generally, and there's always an alternative dawn chorus, let's put it that way. The sound of empty beer bottles, tins, cans and wine bottles all clattering about very loudly as they go into the dumpster truck. It's actually legendary in our road, and I'm just glad that the neighbours are also in their beds at that time of day too, because I'd be very embarrassed. They can't actually see whose bin it actually is, so it saves me some embarrassment, I suppose. Now, where was that AA phone number again? All scintillating stuff, maybe you're saying, but well done, Tony, at least, I hear you shout. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Shucks, that's really great. Anyway, the reason I'm banging on about all this, and you see this in Saturday Sockets every week, so usually I'm on a mission for something or other, is because of what actually I was planning to do last Saturday afternoon. I would say, in my mind, at least. Lady Throop, my wife, had absolutely no idea what I was up to. She was planning an afternoon on the Sun Lounger because we've got a new water feature that my in-laws very kindly bought for us recently. So all she wanted to do was sit in the sunshine and listen to that water feature in our garden while she snoozed in the sun. Happy days. She had her own agenda, and I must admit, Venus and Mars probably comes into mind here, guys. Venus and Mars. Anyway, you see, my logic was designed to get all the weekly around the house chores done by lunch, And then I could venture out my lovely classic cars for the afternoon. Clever, huh? A plan so cunning, even Dr. Quick Brown Wiley Fox, the world-renowned senior lecturer at the ICCD, more commonly known as the Institute of Cunning and Crafty Dodges, would have been well proud. And for those in the UK, you'll remember that last Saturday was actually an absolutely gorgeous day. Blue sky, sun is shining, and birds are singing in the trees. It really was the perfect weekend. So I reasoned it was perfect too. Now, who couldn't resist a trip out in the Stag, my beautiful Triumph Stag that's been hanging around, needing a bit of a drive for a couple of weeks. And with the top down too, of course. Stuff the sunburn, I said to myself, I'm going to risk it and have some fun. So job's finally done, I ventured out, but not just in one car. I came back about an hour after being out in the Stag to drive the Arry The 2500S Saloon that you'll know we've also got, making an excuse to my beloved that I needed to go back out and buy some grass seed this time. Even more clever, huh? And I'm sure many of us do the same kind of thing as the odd shopping trip mentioned and take the classic car with us. So the afternoon came and went, and I had a jolly good time, I must say. But it wasn't until later on someone asked me, actually, Tony, which car do you prefer driving? You've got two, very lucky chap. You've got a Triumph Stag, you've got the Saloon. Which one do you actually prefer driving? And if I'm honest, I really struggled to answer that question for quite some time. For me, both cars, in my opinion, are absolutely fantastic. I love them both, but obviously for very different reasons. And I'm sure many of you guys have got more than one car out there. It seems to be a bit of a thing. You get scratched and you get the itch of classic cars, and before you know it, you've got one or two kicking around the house. But the Stag itself is, I think, 'cause I'm a 6'2" bloke, 17.5 stone, it's quite titchy for me by saloon and modern day car standards. You know, these cars were built of their time, and if you compare them to modern day cars, then you know they are quite tiny. But I do get into it, and it is okay. I love the open air, almost kind of go-kart experience the car gives you, and it always feels quite quick off the mark too, in terms of the Stag. I know that it's likely an optical illusion. It always feels like you're going much faster than you actually are, whether it's because you're so close to the ground when driving it, or because it's such a titchy car, but it's quite tweaky. Either way, I've had several admiring glances in this iconic car, and while travelling around, and last weekend was no exception. One bloke, he was a pedestrian, minding his own business, walking on the pavement towards me in the sunshine. I was pootling along, it was a 30-mile-an-hour area, and I just saw his face, and it lit up with big smiles, and a big beaming smile on his face, and he stopped in his tracks, stood on the pavement, looked at me as I was coming towards him, and stuck both thumbs up, as if to say, well done, Tone, what a fantastic looking car. And I thought that was exactly brilliant, and I knew exactly what he meant, and of course with one hand I returned the compliment and gave him a bit of a salute as I drove by, and I'm sure it made his day. I half felt I should drive back and go and give him a lift just to give him an experience, but more on that maybe another time. And for me, guys, that's exactly what sharing the classics dream is all about. It's not about pomposity and look what I've got at all. It's about the joy of driving these cars and the joy it shares with other people who may or may not have a car of their own. Everybody loves a classic car, and in particular, everybody, I think, loves a Triumph Stag. So then later, off I popped down the garden centre in search of grass seed. Yes, I know it's probably the wrong time of year to be planting grass seed, but ever since that day, again in the UK, it's rained for England in this country, so that would have been fine, except the grass seed is still in its box in my shed awaiting to be sown. And no, that's not a euphemism for anything else, by the way. So off I went in the saloon. I'd swapped cars, and having safely parked the Stag back at base, off I went again on a second round. What joy this was. And with this car, just to carry on the earlier theme, I enjoyed a far more sedate a drive. It is more of a gentleman's car, if I could put it that way, rather than a tourer. And I think, if I'm honest, due to the automatic gearbox I've got in it, it is a Borg Warner 35 in the car. That's a replacement for the one that we had with the car when we bought it. I understand from one or two that actually these cars probably had a Borg Warner 65, not a 35, and I understand that's a little bit more powerful and pokey than the 35. 35 is probably a bit under under Wheezy. But and to underline that, a 0 to 60 of I would call about a pensionable age amount of time in a minute would be roughly where I'm at. And I do remember working with an old Spitfire pilot many years ago in the early 80s. I was in my teens, 17 I think, and he had one. He had a sky blue Triumph 2000, and I always thought then what an old fuddy-duddy car it was, being the age of 17. But now I'm kind of his age. Absolutely love it. It's brilliant. So but the funny thing is they are sluggish. Now I'm not sure how these cars got used as bank robber or cop cars back in their day, because every old 1960s or 70s TV series you see they're used as getaway cars. But everything I can only assume then must have happened in either very slow motion, or maybe they had beefed up the manual gearboxes with a far more direct and responsive drive. Maybe the manual boxes were better, which actually does remind me of a superb advert that's currently on the radio and on TV here in the UK that really tickles my fancy every time I hear it on the radio. It's made by the AA, and this time I mean by the Automobile Association, not the Alcoholics Anonymous, as I may have alluded to earlier. Anyway, in the description, when you get a minute, finish this video, check in the description and the link is there. Watch it and have a jolly good laugh. It's only a short film, but I think it's hilarious. I think it's very witty and very cleverly written. But the car, Arry The S Saloon, performed extremely well last Saturday, and it goes round corners like it's on rails. It is really, really a lovely car to drive, and it does actually, once you wind it up, it does keep up with modern day traffic. And I've talked about it before on Saturday Sockets, but the all-round visibility of what's going on around you I think is absolutely brilliant. It's almost like you're on a push bike. You can literally swivel your neck and you can see, unlike modern cars which have got big B pillars and airbag pillars and all sorts of things that get in the way of your vision. I often find people or things are in my blind spot in modern cars. I know you should move around, but I did get caught out a few years ago when I accidentally nudged a cyclist off his bike. He was all right, but he was actually caught in my B pillar to the right hand side of my windscreen in my Mercedes, and I just didn't see him coming into a small mini roundabout, because as he travelled he was actually right in that blind spot. So don't have that with these old cars, and I think that's quite refreshing actually. Okay, you put up with a bit of a thing trying to wind them up, but eventually they get there, and they do keep up with modern day traffic, which is really good. And with both of these cars, I know it sounds weird, but they each have their very own smell too. That of the 1970s. I was over in Christchurch a couple of weekends ago, and a lady rocked up and had a look at the saloon car. The doors were open, I left it bonnet open and so on. Her little boy, who was only about 5 or 6, decided he'd love to get in the car and play with the steering wheel, and that was absolutely fine. And I found myself quipping to his mum, yes, it even smells of the 1970s in there, and it does. Whether it's the leatherette materials or I don't know what, but they seem to have retained their own 1970s musty smell, and I absolutely love that, as well as the smell of the burnt petrol as well, being a petrol head like you guys. So in short, I loved the drive in Arry The S to the garden centre and back last weekend. And really, to sum it all up, at the end of last Saturday, which car did I actually enjoy driving the most? And the truth of the answer is, actually, I love both of them. It really was, last Saturday, the most joyous afternoon of driving around in a classic car bliss. That's all I can describe it as. And guys, you know, this is why we share the classic stream together, and I hope you've enjoyed the podcast this evening, and we hope to do more of these as we go forward. Please just check in the description and join us on a Saturday for the written version of Saturday Sockets. I've tried to bring this a bit of a live, that not only do you get this kind of TR Tony rant every week, and it is very different, but we share stories from around the world and videos and archives and all sorts of interesting stuff that people absolutely love. So join us, it's free on a Saturday, and the link will be in the description. Alright guys, thanks for listening. I hope you have a really great week, and we'll see you online on Arry The Stag very soon. Couple of weeks time. All the best. Cheers for now. Bye.